Hi guys, Tor here. I've been getting some questions about my Stamina Sorcerer and how I set it up, and a lot of other things pertaining to it, so I thought I'd do this video to kind of help explain that and give some suggestions, etc. So to start off with, I wanted to give a brief discussion about the Stamina Sorcerer versus the Stamina Dragon Knight. Stamina Dragon Knight used to be a lot better than the Stamina Sorcerer just because they had more reliable sustain and didn't really have to worry about them being completely dry on stamina the whole time. Stamina Sorcerer sustain is really rough. If anyone's ever played it in an endgame setting, before the changes to these synergies, it was incredibly difficult to sustain, so Stamina Dragon Knight always pulled ahead. However, in Dragon Bones with the change to synergies, the Stamina Sorcerer is pulling ahead because we are able to sustain a lot better now. We can keep up a max damage rotation without much issue as long as our support in our group are throwing us synergies such as orbs and shards. So that's why we're running the Stamina Sorcerer now instead of the Stamina Dragon Knight. I want to emphasize to start off with that this is an in-game trials build. This is not a solo Maelstrom, this is not a PvP build. This is strictly for trials, and even more specifically for hard mode trials. Although you can do any trial with this build, absolutely no problem. This is just optimized for hard content and pulling the maximum number of damage absolutely possible. So to start off with, let's talk about some gear. We are running 5 Sunderflame with 1 axe, 1 dagger, Nirnroot axe on the main hand, always Nirnroot main hand, with a poison damage enchantment, and then a dagger infused with a weapon damage enchantment. We're running a Nirnroot Maelstrom bow with a double damage poison. I'll put the recipes for some of these poisons in the description after the video. We are running 3 different types of poisons in my group because we have noticed that there is a bug where a poison with the same trait, if applied while another poison is ticking with the same trait, obviously, it will remove the previous poison. So what does that mean? That means if I cast an ability or whatever and it procs my, say, double damage poison, and I have another stamina in my group who procs the double damage poison 2 seconds later, it will remove my poison and I will stop getting damage ticks and the other person's poison will tick. We used to run all stam in our group with this double damage poison because this is the best poison, gives the most damage of all of them. But we noticed that we were losing damage, or that it would be really random, like sometimes I would pull really low DPS and another DPS would pull really high, etc. So we did some investigation and we found that the best combination to run is someone runs double damage, someone runs drain health, and someone runs gradual health drain. So most of the time I've lately been running the drain health poison, but it really just depends on your group. Like I said, I will post a description of all the poison ingredients. For as far as who runs what, it really doesn't matter. It's just up to your group. Your group just needs to decide. So we are also running Velidreth. All of our body pieces are divines. Velidreth versus Stormfist. I don't personally use Stormfist. Stormfist is a little bit better for sustain, and it's decent on a Stamina Sorcerer because we do have some passes for shock damage as well as physical damage. However, Velidreth will always beat out Stormfist as far as raw damage. The only benefit to Stormfist over Velidreth is you get a small bit of extra sustain because the one piece is stamina recovery. If possible, run Velidreth. If your group is lacking as far as people throwing out synergies, or if you're just less comfortable with the Stamina Sorcerer and you just want that extra sustain, then go ahead and run Stormfist. It's going to be probably about 500 to 1k DPS less, but still a decent option. We are running 5 pieces of the Vicious Ophidian, 2 body, 3 jewelry. The reason is because Stamina Sorcerer sustain is very rough, and we want that reduced stamina cost by 8% on both bars, especially because a lot of our more expensive skills are on our bow bar. So running it on dual wield is a little bit worse for a stamina sorcerer, but also we want these on the body and the jewelry because Sunderflame can easily be kept up on the front bar, no issues. We are again running all divines. We are running 6 pieces of medium and 1 piece heavy. A lot of people in my group, myself included, we just feel like this is the best setup. We tend to get the best results with it as far as damage and survivability. This is going to put us about 16.8k health without Eben and without Warhorn, which is, in my opinion, probably the lowest you should go on a stamina class because we don't have shields, we only have Blade Cloak, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. We are running 3 weapon damage glyphs on our jewelry. Some people have asked me about running 1 region over weapon damage, and my response to that is only run 1 region if you feel like you really need it. Maybe you can't sustain because your group isn't throwing out good synergies. You're gonna lose some damage, but it's better than being completely dry on resources all the time. In my personal experience, I have a very optimized group. We are an in-game team who does focus on keeping up a lot of buffs and keeping a lot of synergies going, so I tend to prefer 3 weapon damage because I can sustain, and this is going to give me the best possible damage. Some other setups we can run, of course we are running all stamina enchants on the body before I forget that. Some other setups we can run are Night Mother's Gaze with Vicious Ophidian. I prefer to run Vicious Ophidian with all of my setups. We'll talk about running a non-Vicious Ophidian setup in just a little bit. So Night Mother's Gaze is also very good on a stamina sorcerer because of Hurricane and our other AoE abilities. We can keep that up in an AoE situation very well. I prefer to run Double Dagger if I'm running Night Mother's Gaze because you want that little extra crit because Night Mother's procs off critical damage. That's going to keep Night Mother's proccing regularly on everything around you, and it works very well with 2 daggers. We are in NMG, we are still running 6-1, 6 medium, 1 heavy, still all the same enchantments. Another possible setup, if all of your group is already running penetration sets, let's say for instance you're running 5 stamina, you're the stamina who doesn't need to run a pen set because the other 4 are already in the group, then Mechanical Acuity is the set you're going to want to go with. Mechanical Acuity is great as far as a pure damage set. Now solo, it's going to be a little bit less DPS, and it's going to give you a lot of varying numbers if you're just testing it on the dummy because, of course, it's a proc set as far as you have a chance to proc the 100% crit, and it only occurs every 18 seconds. Now you want this to be on your front bar, always, if you're wearing Acuity. You want to be able to control that proc. You don't want it proccing while it's on your back bar if possible. Sometimes it will, you just have to deal with it. But you want this to be on your front bar so you can get the most burst as possible, and that's going to give you your highest overall damage. Now, there's some conversation about, do I want to run 2 axes, 2 daggers, or 1 dagger, 1 axe with Mechanical Acuity? I've been talking to a lot of people that I know on PC who run Acuity like this, and they're telling me that on a Stamina Sorcerer, the best is 1 dagger, 1 axe. You can run double axe if you wish. It's going to be probably a little bit more single target damage, but there's some debate over that. A lot of people are saying they're getting their best numbers in general off 1 dagger, 1 axe. So the food we're running, we are running the blue max stam, max health food. We don't need Dubious Throne because in a group that's optimized, we are getting those synergies, as I was discussing earlier. The only time that I would ever run Dubious is if I'm practicing my rotation solo and I'm not getting any help. I feel like this is just the best option to go with, the max health, max stam. It's going to give you your most damage, and you're still gonna be able to sustain just fine as long as your group is doing well. We are a vampire as well, so that's going to help us a little bit with sustain. It's going to give us 10% recovery as long as we're stage 2 or higher. We are using the Warrior Mundus Stone. This is hands down the best Mundus Stone to use on a stamina class, period. It's going to give you more damage than, say, the Lover, because you don't need it if you're running pen sets. You don't need something such as the Thief, because that got nerfed a while back. With Shadow, your crits are still harder with the hit harder with the Warrior. This is just all around the best to go with. So let's start talking about some skills. Oh, of course, we also have 64 points in stamina. One thing I believe I forgot to mention, 5-1-1 versus 6-1 on Mechanical Acuity. You are going to want to run 6-1, most likely. It's what I've been hearing. I, however, run 5-1-1 because I'm just lazy and I don't want to gold out another medium piece, and I already have this one gold. I've been hearing from a lot of people that they're testing higher in 6-1, but our initial thought was 5-1-1. Play around with it, see what works best for you. Alright, so skills. On our front bar, we are running Deadly Cloak. This is going to be your survival move, as well as some good AoE DPS and single target DPS. Bound Armaments. You need this on both bars. It's your toggle, gives you extra max stam, gives you some heavy attack damage. Trap Beast, going to give you a little bit of weapon damage from the Fighter's Guild passive, and it's a Great Dot, gives you your Minor Force buff. Shrouded Dagger, this is our spammable. You can use the other more, Flying Dagger. It's going to give you a little bit extra single target DPS. However, Shrouded Dagger tends to be a lot better if there's an add, especially if you have 3 targets who are clustered close together. I've hit 40k plus on my 3rd dagger bounce on a crit. It's just very good, and this is the preferred spammable for stamina if their class doesn't have one. Of course, we're going to use Rending Slashes. This is our bread and butter dot from the dual wield skill line. We're using Flawless Dawnbreaker on the front bar to give us the extra weapon damage. We typically will not actually cast this, even in AoE situations. We have a different ultimate for AoE situations, which I'll talk about in just a few moments. On the back bar, we are running Hurricane. This is going to give you your major resistances, and this is one of your best AoE damage dealing skills. You want to keep this up 100% when possible, and you really should have no reason not to keep it up. Of course, we're running Bound Armaments in the back again. It's a toggle, you need it on both bars. Endless Hail, this is your highest damage dealing move on a stamina class. You need to have this with a Maelstrom Bow. This is 100% necessary for every stamina. Poison Injection, this is one of our best dots as well. It's also our Execute, under 50%. Keep this up all the time. Great dot to use. Caltrops, great AoE, ground-based damage dealing dot. Just keep it up all the time as well. Ultimates. There are a few different ultimates we can go with on our back bar. We can use Ballista. This is going to be your selfish single target damage. I say selfish because it's going to give you slightly more damage than, say, the Storm Atronach for single target. However, I say selfish also because the reason that you would run the Greater Storm Atronach is because you give your group Charged Lightning. This is going to buff your numbers just slightly, maybe 100, 200 DPS more, but you're not giving your group that Greater Storm Atronach Charged Lightning synergy. Now, we'd use Greater Storm Atronach in all situations that we would use Ballista, with the exception of a very, very bursty fight like the Arch Custodian in Halls of Fabrication. I would still run Ballista for sure. Now, the Greater Storm Atronach is going to give us comparable single target DPS to the Ballista, as I've already said, as well as the Charge Lightning synergy. You want to use this as much as possible. Charge Lightning is a great damage buff because it gives Major Berserk for 8 seconds to your group, whoever casts it, or hits the synergy. Now, Suppression Field. This is going to be our AoE ultimate. We want to use this in trash pools. We don't really want to use this on bosses. We prefer Storm Atronach. It is magic damage, so it's not great as far as damage goes. However, it's going to give you the most AoE DPS. It's going to outperform Dawnbreaker, which is why I said earlier we don't want to cast Dawnbreaker really ever. This is going to give us great AoE DPS, and it's also going to, for smaller adds especially, it's going to apply a stun and a silence that's going to proc a dual wield passive called Ruffian. Gives you 15% more damage. This is going to make your Blade Cloak and your Shrouded Dagger and your Rending Slashes hit just a little bit harder. So, as far as our rotation goes, use the list for this to show you. I like to use Hurricane on the back bar and Trap on the front bar, which is kind of controversial among Stam sorts. A lot of them like to keep Hurricane on the front bar and Trap on the back. I personally found better results with Hurricane on the back. So what I like to do is I start with a pre-buff with Trap and Cloak. So I'll come in and I'll hit this, and then I'll do Hurricane, Hail, Caltrops, Poison Injection, hit my Ballista if it's up, full charge heavy, Trap, Rending, 2 daggers, full charge heavy, back to Cloak. So we want to make sure we're doing at least 2 heavy attacks. It's going to be the best way to sustain. I've tried to do a 1 heavy attack or a no heavy attack rotation, and try to push the absolute max damage if I'm not running Sunderflame, and it is very hard to do even when getting synergies, etc. We want to make sure we're doing 2 heavy attacks, especially if we're using Sunderflame. I specifically have my heavy attacks where they are because I want to proc Sunderflame when I'm getting to the front bar and when I'm leaving the front bar, so I keep it up as much as possible. So we'll go through the rotation again. It's Hurricane, Hail, Caltrops, Poison Inject. You want to use your ultimate when it's there, and then you're going to go into full charge heavy, Trap, Rending, 2 Shrouded Daggers, heavy attack, Cloak. Just keep that on repeat. You want to light attack between everything, unless it's specifically noted as to a full charge heavy. So with this rotation, you should be pulling solo. In Sunderflame VO, I usually pull somewhere around 36, 37. I have to use Dubious Comoran Throne whenever I'm doing solo, as I mentioned earlier. So 36, 37 is a good mark. Stamina Sorks don't really bring like Fracture or anything, so your numbers solo are typically pretty low. So don't really be discouraged if you're around 35, 36. That's average for a Stam sort. However, in a group situation, this is going to translate to a lot higher. You're going to be somewhere around 60 to 65k DPS, depending on what setup you're in. My highest parse has been in Sunderflame and VO. I've gotten 64k. With Acuity VO, as long as you have all the pen sets, you'll probably hit somewhere around 65, 66. But since I'm the one who runs Sunderflame for my group, I haven't got to test that. The champion points that I'm using are, in the blue tree, I'm using 64 Mighty, 11 Piercing, 66 Precise Strikes, 66 Thaumaturge, 31 Master at Arms, and 2 Physical Weapon. I've been asked why use 2 Physical Weapon, and it's just opportunity cost. We could put it in Piercing and get a little extra penetration, but I've found that my group has pretty good and great AoE burn, so we don't tend to need a little more there. On a single target fight, you actually need 0 in piercing as long as everything is being kept up properly. So this piercing is really only for trash pulls, which does make up a significant amount of most trials. So in my opinion, just having those two here instead of in piercing, just going to give us a little more, tiny, maybe 1 to 200 DPS, if that, damage on boss burn. As far as red tree, it's all going to be situational as far as what trial you're in. Different teams have charts optimized for different trials. Just you can find some online. I can't share mine because they're private for my raid team. So just talk to your group and see what they run, and then also look online. As far as green CP, I like to always run 75 in tenacity and 75 in the regen, no matter what I'm playing. I'll do this on my Magnite Blade, my Mag Stork, etc. The remaining points are really variable. Since I'm playing on a stam class, I like to put a lot into block cost reduction, especially for trials such as VMAL hard mode and AA hard mode, where there's a lot of things that you have to block. This just keeps from draining all your stamina while blocking these things. And then just whatever's left I put in like break free. Some people will put like 40 points in Shadow Ward, 40 points in Tumbling, and just split the rest between like Warlord and Sprinter or whatever. Just do whatever's good for you. The green tree is really, really subjective. So I think that about covers everything as far as the Stamina Sorcerer. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, message me on PSN, whatever. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.